Welcome to another episode of Brutal Review. We're here today with a band that's going to put the brutal in the review, Vathek. We're here with Scott, Travis, Carl, and Ethan, and we're going to be talking about their album, Aborted Origins. Will this be your guys' first full-length album or album in general?
Yes.
Yep.
It was great.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a trip. Like,
It was a pretty long process from start to end, but glad it's done.
We got there.
kind of a brand new experience for I guess a lot of us. Like,
Everybody.
they had been recording before. This was like my first time actually like recording a record, so it was exciting for me. But first time full record for everybody, really. So
Nice.
really
Well,
cool.
listening to it, it's loaded with gravity blast, triplets, crushing vocals. I would say this would tickle the fancy for anybody looking for a brutal death metal band from Winnipeg. Is that what you're all hoping for? Brutal death?
in that
genre.
ballpark,
Yeah,
absolutely.
One of those ones.
So how did you guys form Vathek into what it is today?
Well, I started with our old drummer, DG. And then we found Carl and Ethan. And from there, we just had a few lineup changes. And now here's Scott and our new drummer, Jordan.
Okay. You started with just one guitarist then? And
Yeah.
We tried out a few over the years, but just none of them were a great fit until we found Scott.
I actually asked to be in the band because I just love death metal so much, and I was playing in another band before, and when the other guitar player before me, Tyler, left, it was like opportunity, and I really wanted to take it. So I talked to Ethan because we were both playing in the same band at the time, and now we're here, and it's pretty cool.
nice.
And it's working out
Yeah.
very well.
So for the writing process for this album, how did it start? Did it start mainly with you and then Scott kind of just
Yeah,
added
I
his
had some
influence,
material
or-
like previously, and Scott came to the table with quite a bit of material, and we went from there.
Yeah, like most of the material on this record is like Travis's material that he came up with, like DG and Carl and Ethan, and then I came in and I wrote one song kind of immediately coming into the band, and then another song we kind of wrote collaboratively with some riffs that I had come up with, but majority of the album is mostly like Travis and the older members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one did you have the hand in then?
The one that I specifically wrote cover to cover or front to back was Gratification from Despair.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That one's
and
a doozy.
then the one that we collaborated on was Martial Ingestion.
Okay.
And I actually wrote the lyrics for that one before even joining Vathek, so it was kind of cool that like that made it into the band before I even knew that I was gonna be in the band. So
He kind of just brought it, and we heard it, and we're like, whoa, that's a
Yeah.
Vathek song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it just kind of like worked out and it fit, and they all liked it. It was just good for everybody.
That's the pressure, bringing
Yeah.
in new material. And go,
yeah.
I'm going to play it quiet so you guys don't know if it's good or not. So the influences, I hear a lot of Cannibal Corpse, Dying Fetus, Cattle Decapitation at times, death-style leads in some songs. Who were your influences when it came to writing this album?
For me, a lot of it was Suffocation.
Okay.
Just a lot of Suffocation.
With the songs you wrote, was it kind of...
Well, for Gratification, that was Napalm Death, mostly. Also Death and Decapitated.
Okay.
Yeah, for like leads and stuff, yeah, I listened to like a lot of Decapitated, a lot of like Nile, Aeon, so stuff with like the really like harmonic kind of evil sounding leads. I'm like all over that.
Yeah,
so.
because those shine
yeah.
at certain parts of each song. You just hear it
Yeah.
cut through. So, with an album like this, did you guys hope to express any specific atmosphere or theme?
We wanted it to be unpleasant, in a word, like just a really ugly album. Like a lot of it's exploring, like the darker side of what makes humans human. And I mean, you wouldn't want sunshine and rainbows to listen to that too, right?
No.
So
And you wouldn't call a family album Aborted Origins.
I wouldn't think so.
The most confusing children's album ever written. So following along with the brutal lyrics, what inspired that lyrical direction?
a lot of Well, quite a bit of it's personal. Like, for example, aphotic is like about my experience with sleep paralysis, and just in general, meeting people and being like, kind of seeing the flaws that they don't see in themselves, and then putting that into words
Okay.
Or actions.
or actions.
Yeah, like because it also gets like pretty explicit and violent at times, but I think the way we try to look at that, it's kind of like we're trying to be on the edge of like the human imagination of like what something horrible is, and you know what actually like happens in reality. Like you know, horrible things happen in the real world, like
Yeah.
obviously. So I think like kind of teetering on that kind of like fantasy reality is like really interesting, and it kind of gives you a new perspective to kind of look at it, like the duality of
The
it.
extremes of each side. so-
Yeah, like me and Ethan wrote Chemistry of the Mutated lyrics like together, and that was like a lot of fun. That song is about addiction and like drug abuse or abuse of like anything, because like as humans, like we addict to things, like anything. We addict to relationships, we addict to substances, we addict like anything, cell phones, like whatever it is. And like if you let that consume you, like it will destroy you. And that's like what we really wanted to get to the heart of with those kinds of themes.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
The album sounds great. Who did you guys have help make this album?
Matt Copper did most of the recording and all of the engineering and mixing. I recorded just the DIs from the guitars and the bass. Matt pretty much did the rest for drums and vocals, and yeah, he did all the mixing, reamping, and everything, and he did an absolutely like fabulous job. Like pretty much like working closely with him was a real treat. Like he knew exactly kind of what we wanted, and he was really easy to just talk to and let him know like how we wanted, like what the direction that we wanted to go in, and it worked out really good. And Ryan Forsyth did the mastering, and Pexona Design. I actually have no idea what the artist's name is. He just goes,
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah.
Like-
But honestly, like really amazing artwork. So yeah, like we had the concept in mind, and like we just kind of gave it to him, and
And that's what he came back
he
with.
just came back with it, and we were just like blown away by it. So
Yeah, it's an interesting
Yeah.
subject to throw an artist, and
yeah,
you hope for
yeah.
the best, really.
Yeah,
He nailed it though. So.
yeah, it was great.
So we'll have to look through the pages and see who the artist was for that one.
We also brought in Tom Ingham and Mike Mason to help out with some of the vocals. And there's so many more people I would have liked to have asked, but with the timeline, we only really had the time for two of them. But maybe in the future we can bring in more people.
Where do they show up? Which tunes?
Well, Mike is on Syphilis Shotgun in the first chorus, and Tom actually does quite a bit throughout Martial Ingestion.
Okay. So the tones for the guitars and the bass sound great. The bass cuts through and the guitars don't falter for a second. Was it a meticulous process to get them sounding how you wanted for the album, or was it rather easy?
The way we kind of went about it going into the studio was we wanted to make it as close to kind of what we do live. Yeah, pretty much like as close as like we can get it. We did something kind of interesting, I guess, like in the studio with Matt, where we had two microphones on the cabinet that went into a mixer, and we blended at the mixer, and then we just recorded that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, no, we were really happy with the tones that we got
Yeah.
from it. That was pretty much exactly what we asked for. And with Carl's tone, we just recorded a DI and his preamp pedal, and we pretty much just stuck with that. We thought
Yeah.
that we might want to reamp it, but when we gave it to Matt, he said it was like more than enough, and yeah.
Less work, the better, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you can like really hear Carl's like fingers on it, which is like really cool.
Well, because he has that bass solo, I don't remember which song, but
Yeah.
it hits you. And then all of you kick in. It's just like, okay, that was delicious.
Another thing we really wanted was the bass to pop out on this.
Yeah.
And I feel like it does pretty
Yeah.
well.
It definitely emphasizes all the bass and everything that's happening. the track I loved the second I started hearing was Systematic Toxicity. Trems blasting into sick scream that starts seconds in. Plus, nearing the 2-minute mark, you have a very cattle-sounding riff along with the gutturals to go along with it. That one hit my soft spot. So what were your favorite songs to work on and record?
I think that one, honestly, like pretty much for any of us, like sitting down, it was really easy for us to record that one. Like it just flows really, really good. And you know, it's one that you wrote like way back.
I think like the second or third song I wrote for Vathek when we started.
Yeah, and it's just killer. Like we made a couple of changes when Jordan hopped behind the kit, but other than that, like that song's pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah.
It's just really fun for everybody.
My favorite song to work on was the album title, Aborted Origins. It's a song I had riffs for like a long time.
I'd probably have to go with Chemistry of the Mutated because that's another like quite old song. But I was never able to get the lyrics to a place where I was happy with them. I feel like I probably wrote that song like 12 or 14 times before I worked with Scott on it and we actually nailed down the concept and got something we were happy with for once.
I liked Gratification and Despair. It was nice playing with a different style too. Just sort of mixing the two styles, what I used to do for playing bass under TJ compared to playing under Scott. And it was pretty fun, just playing a different style.
Nice. For the next album, do you guys plan on doing anything differently, or is it gonna more or less stay the same direction?
I feel like we're kind of going in a new direction, just trying new things.
Like we want it to
writing-wise.
be, we want it to be Vathek still, obviously.
But explore new options.
Yeah, like I think we all kind of agree, like we could still hone in like our own sound. Like this last record is kind of a lot of mix of our favorite bands, and maybe it kind of comes off as like, you know, oh, that's like obviously inspired by this, inspired by that. Whereas I think we want to try to get to the point where maybe it's like, oh, like that's something new, maybe more original. We're not really sure how we're gonna do that yet, but I think that's something that we all kind of
Maybe just all get together in the room and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And something else I'd like to do going forward is a few of the songs on the album were written before we had the concept of the album, so we just kind of had to figure out how to make them fit and make a couple changes here and there. For the next one, I think we're planning on like forming out the full concept ahead of time and then just writing based on that rather than forcing things to fit where maybe something else could do a better job.
Yeah, having that direction before you get into it.
Yeah.
So how do your new songs compare to the ones that are on this album? Do you have many more written?
There's one full one written right now, and then there's just some ideas like floating around right now, but I think the new one that's done is definitely a different sound than what you'd probably hear on this album.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a bit different. It's still heavy. It's still like really brutal, but yeah, definitely
Evolving.
Evolving.
It's hard
Yeah.
really to say what it sounds like, I guess.
And we all really like it.
Yeah.
Are you guys? So what do you guys have in store for the future, and the near future, and the further future?
Well, we've got our release on October 9th.
6th.
6th, sorry. And we're playing in Regina before that on the Friday. So we're going out there and playing with Cithra for their CD release, and then they're coming here to play with us.
Awesome.
And then in November we're on Perlocution's EP release. We would like to tour and we'd like to play some festivals, get out of Winnipeg, that kind of thing. We want to do the new record, obviously, something after this. But yeah, that's still kind of like up in the air. Like logistically, we haven't really figured things out. So
Yeah. Still kind of ratting on this right now.
yeah. It's kind of like that's what's on our horizon, and like once that kind of like goes over the edge, then we can really start thinking about where we're at and what we're going to be doing going forward.
Take a step back and think about our direction.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to be playing the new songs at these shows?
Yeah, we're going to be playing that one that
Just
DJ
the one that's finished.
So you better show up to the show.
You better show up.
So for anyone who enjoys punishing riffs, grotesque lyrical content, and drums that would make your eyebrows hair stand up, I would highly recommend grabbing this album. It satisfies all your brutal death metal needs. Thanks again, Scott, Ethan, Carl, Travis. Thanks for watching Brutal Review.